The world has always been on the edge of chaos, but 2025 feels different. Something about this year carries a kind of silence before a storm, the uneasy calm that comes just before the world changes forever. You can feel it in the air, the tension, the fear, the whispers of a war that no one wants, but everyone feels is coming. It's in the news, it's in the markets, it's in the skies where fighter jets tear across invisible borders, reminding us that peace is just a fragile illusion. Every great conflict in history began quietly. In 1914, it started with one gunshot. In 1939, it started with one invasion. And now in 2025, it starts with something you can't even see: a drone, a code, a satellite signal. The weapons are smaller, faster, smarter, and more dangerous than ever. The world doesn't need armies of millions anymore. Just one keystroke, one wrong move, one human mistake, and it could all ignite. Across Eastern Europe, the ground trembles under the weight of old grudges. Russia still locked in a brutal, grinding war that has turned cities into ash. Ukraine's skies echo with sirens, while NATO watches from the shadows, each move a test of patience and pride. To the west, politicians talk of peace. To the east, generals prepare for war. And somewhere in between lies the world's breaking point. But Europe isn't the only spark waiting to explode. In the Middle East, the desert heat carries the scent of gunpowder. The Iran-Israel conflict simmers like a volcano ready to erupt at any second. Every missile strike, every drone attack, every warning feels like a rehearsal for something much larger. The United States hovers nearby, its fleets moving through the Mediterranean, while Russia and China silently pick sides. One small miscalculation, and the entire region could burn again. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, the South China Sea is alive with silent battles. Warships circle each other like predators. China's expansion has turned reefs into fortresses, and American aircraft carriers loom on the horizon, daring anyone to make the first move. The world's busiest trade route has become a chessboard of steel and threat. And the question no one dares to ask aloud is what happens if the first missile doesn't miss. The truth is, war no longer begins with a declaration. It begins with a blackout, a hacked satellite, a sabotaged system. Cyber warfare, the new frontier. In 2025, you don't have to drop bombs to bring a nation to its knees. Just disable its power grid, cripple its internet, or crash its economy overnight. The world's strongest nations are learning that dominance now depends not on who has the most tanks, but who controls the code. Behind closed doors, intelligence agencies wage silent wars no one talks about. Spies are no longer just humans, they're algorithms, AI systems that can predict military moves before they happen. Every country is racing to build smarter machines, and the terrifying part is that one day soon, those machines might start making their own decisions. Imagine a future where an AI drone decides who lives and who dies without a single human command. That future isn't far away, it's already here. But humans never learn. For centuries, power has blinded leaders to reason. The same pride, the same hunger for dominance that caused ancient empires to fall, still runs through modern governments. They wear suits now instead of armor, they fight with numbers instead of swords, but it's the same game, just a different board. And every empire believes it can't fall, until it does. The markets already know something's coming. Oil prices climb, currencies shake, investors whisper about war. Defense stocks surge while humanitarian aid dwindles. It's a pattern we've seen before: the world preparing for destruction while pretending everything is fine. But 2025 isn't just another year of political tension. It's the year when multiple fault lines across the planet are beginning to move all at once. Africa is bleeding quietly in Sudan. Rebels fight for control. In Niger, coups rewrite the future of democracy. Congo drowns in forgotten wars while the world looks away. These are not wars of conquest, they're wars of survival, fought over food, water, and power. And as the planet heats up, these conflicts will only grow. The next world war might not be fought over ideology, but over resources. Look closer, and you'll see that even nations at peace are arming themselves. Japan rearming for the first time in decades. Germany increasing its defense budget to historic levels. Saudi Arabia buying new missiles every month. It's not preparation anymore, it's expectation. Everyone feels something coming. The question is not if, but when. And yet, in this chaos, there's denial. Governments talk about stability while their people panic. News anchors smile while satellites capture new military buildups every day. But if you study history, you'll see the biggest wars never looked like wars at the start. They looked like politics, debate, and diplomacy. Until one morning they didn't. The most dangerous part about 2025 is how connected everything is. One spark in Ukraine could affect Taiwan. One missile in Gaza could shake Wall Street. One cyber attack in Europe could darken entire continents. The world is no longer divided by oceans, it's tied together by invisible threads. And if one thread snaps, everything could unravel. But war is not just fought with weapons anymore. It's fought with information and misinformation. The internet has become a battlefield of truth and lies. Deepfakes, propaganda, social manipulation, they don't just influence opinions, they start revolutions. Whole populations can be turned against each other without a single bullet fired. And that's what makes modern war so terrifying. It doesn't always look like war. Sometimes, it looks like chaos. There's another war going on, one that no one sees but everyone feels. The war of fear. Every day people scroll through headlines of tension, of nuclear warnings, of collapsing peace treaties. And slowly, fear becomes normal. That's how the world drifts into conflict. Not suddenly, but silently. People stop being shocked. They stop caring. Until it's too late. Behind the polished speeches, behind the diplomacy and smiles. The truth is, countries are preparing for something they can't avoid. Secret bunkers being rebuilt, military drills growing larger, underground data centers being fortified. Every major power knows the next war won't be fought like the last. And that realization alone is terrifying. The great irony of our time is that humans have never been more connected and yet never more divided. Technology brought us closer, but politics tore us apart. Everyone blames someone, every nation plays the victim, and every leader believes history will remember them as the hero. But history doesn't write heroes, it writes consequences. There's a storm coming, and 2025 may be the year the clouds finally break. Some say it's just fear-mongering, others say it's inevitable. But if history has taught us anything, it's that wars don't begin with soldiers, they begin with silence. And right now the world is quieter than it should be. Maybe it's destiny, maybe it's human nature, or maybe, just maybe, it's the final test. Can humanity stop itself from repeating its own mistakes? The countdown has already begun, the players are already moving, and the stage is set. What happens next will define the next 100 years. Because this isn't just a story about war, it's a story about us, about what happens when power becomes more important than people, when fear becomes stronger than hope, and when peace becomes just a memory. So look around. The future isn't waiting, it's already here. In the cold hours of dawn, as the world sleeps, decisions are being made that could change everything. Inside silent government bunkers, the glow of digital maps lights up the faces of generals and advisors. Tiny dots move across those maps, drones, submarines, satellites, each one representing power, threat, or fear. The conversations are quiet, calculated. One wrong word could mean disaster, and yet somewhere someone always whispers the same thing: we're ready. The truth is, every nation says it wants peace, until war becomes profitable. And in 2025, war isn't just politics, it's business. Every missile fired means money made. Every conflict means contracts signed. Behind the chaos, there's an entire machine that feeds on destruction, defense industries, private armies, corporations that thrive when the world burns. To them, tension isn't danger, it's opportunity. In Europe, the ground still shakes from a war that refuses to end. The Ukraine conflict, now in its 4th year, has evolved into something unrecognizable. Part military, part propaganda, part cyber warfare. Drones patrol the skies like mechanical birds of prey. While both sides trade more than just bullets, they trade digital strikes, hacking each other's systems, corrupting data, spreading confusion. Civilians live in cities without power, without certainty, without hope. And yet, the world has stopped watching. The headlines moved on, but the suffering didn't. Meanwhile in Moscow, the Kremlin stands silent, its walls hiding plans that few understand. Russia feels cornered, its pride bruised, its influence fading. But a wounded power is often the most dangerous. Some analysts say Russia will never stop until it secures control over Eastern Europe again. Others believe it's already planning a bigger move, something that will shake NATO itself. And in that shadow, countries like Poland, Finland, and the Baltics prepare for the worst, quietly fortifying their borders, training their armies, whispering about what could come next. Further south, in the Middle East, the tension has reached a boiling point. Israel's skies are streaked with defense missiles every night, intercepting threats from unseen enemies. Iran, defiant and determined, continues testing new drones and missiles, its leaders calling it a warning to the world. The US fleet remains nearby, always nearby, a reminder that no matter what happens in the Middle East, it never stays there. The conflict ripples outward, drawing in allies, enemies, and innocent people all at once. And then, there's the ghost of the Red Sea, where ships vanish under missile fire and trade routes turn into battlegrounds. The attacks are often denied, blamed on rebels or unknown forces, but everyone knows who's really pulling the strings. It's no longer about land or ideology, it's about control of energy, of trade, of power itself. Every oil tanker sunk, every port bombed, sends shockwaves through the world economy. The price of fuel rises, inflation spreads, and suddenly, even people far from the war feel its touch at gas stations, in grocery stores, in daily life. Asia isn't sleeping through this storm either. China's rise has turned every neighboring sea into a zone of tension. The South China Sea looks peaceful from above, but beneath the surface, submarines circle each other like sharks. Small islands bristle with new radars and anti-ship weapons. American warships cruise nearby, sometimes within sight of Chinese vessels. They don't fire. They just stare, two giants locked in a silent standoff, daring the other to blink first. Taiwan, caught in between, lives every day on the edge. One false move, one misread radar signal, and the entire Pacific could ignite. And yet, even as these visible wars threaten the world, another war rages unseen, unheard. The cyber war. In secret rooms across every continent, digital soldiers sit behind screens, typing commands that could cripple entire nations. Power grids, banking systems, satellites, all are potential targets. A simple line of malicious code could cause blackouts across cities, crash planes, erase billions of dollars in seconds. No blood spilled, no smoke rising, just silence and chaos. In 2025, cyber attacks have already become the new normal. Hospitals shut down without explanation. Airports delay flights due to technical issues. Government websites collapse overnight. No one claims responsibility, but everyone suspects everyone else. And this invisible war might be the most dangerous one yet, because it's being fought in a world that still doesn't fully understand how to defend itself. Technology was supposed to unite humanity. Instead, it's dividing it faster than ever. Artificial intelligence, once a promise of peace, now builds weapons that think for themselves. Machine learning predicts enemy movements before they happen, while autonomous drones decide when to strike. Somewhere in a lab, deep within a classified facility, an AI is being trained to fight wars better than any human. But no one can answer the most important question: what happens when it decides to fight without us? In the corridors of global power, leaders still talk about diplomacy, about balance, about peace. But behind their smiles, there's fear. They know how fragile everything is now. They know one misstep could collapse everything. The world has never been this interconnected, and that's exactly what makes it so vulnerable. Even small nations now play roles far larger than their size. A cyber attack from North Korea can cripple South Korean systems. A coup in Africa can destabilize global food supply chains. A missile launch in the Middle East can raise fuel prices in America within hours. Every conflict now has global consequences. The butterfly effect of war. One act of aggression on one continent ripples across them all. In the shadows, alliances are shifting. Old enemies are becoming silent partners. Nations that once fought each other now share intelligence, technology, and weapons. The BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, now stands as a quiet counterweight to the Western world. They speak of independence, of creating a new world order not ruled by the dollar. And yet, even within that group, suspicion lingers. In geopolitics, friendship lasts only until the first shot is fired. 2025 is not just a year of danger, it's a year of decisions. Every world leader knows they're walking on glass. One wrong step, and the entire structure could shatter. The media calls it the year of tipping points. Scientists call it the year of collapse. Politicians call it a moment of transition. But ordinary people, they just call it what it feels like: fear. And it's not an irrational fear. For the first time since the Cold War, nuclear threats are openly discussed again. North Korea proudly displays its missiles. Russia talks of strategic deterrence. Even Iran hints at the possibility of nuclear development. The treaties that once kept the world in check are crumbling. Each test, each threat, each speech feels like one more match tossed into a room full of gasoline. But despite everything, despite the chaos, the fear, the weapons, there's something strange about humanity. We always think the unthinkable can't happen again. We thought World War I was the war to end all wars. Then came World War II, then Korea, then Vietnam, then Iraq, then Ukraine. Every generation swears they've learned from the past, and every generation proves they haven't. Still, somewhere deep inside, there's hope. People still believe the world can step back from the edge. Movements rise, voices protest, citizens refuse to stay silent. In cities around the globe, people march not for war, but for peace. They don't make the headlines, but they exist. They remind us that history isn't written only by the powerful, it's written by those who survive. The danger is real, but so is the choice. The future of war isn't carved in stone. It's built in moments like these and decisions made behind closed doors. In the courage of people who speak truth when everyone else stays quiet. In the hope that maybe, just maybe, we can rewrite the next chapter before it's too late. Because the world isn't doomed yet, not unless we choose to be. The sun rises over a world pretending to be calm. Cities buzz, people commute, social media scrolls endlessly, but beneath that daily rhythm, something feels off. Governments are tense. Markets are restless. Satellites record strange movements, convoys, missile tests, secret construction in remote deserts. The silence before a storm is louder than ever, and everyone can feel it. For decades, humanity believed war was predictable, that it followed rules, strategies, boundaries. But 2025 has rewritten every rule. Conflicts are no longer fought between nations, they're fought between networks, between ideologies, between realities. One moment a country stands at peace, the next its communication lines vanish. Its power grids collapse and chaos spreads like wildfire. No declaration, no warning, just darkness. In a world connected by technology, war doesn't need soldiers, it needs signals. Invisible, silent, digital signals that can bring entire nations to their knees without a single bullet fired. Hackers are the new commandos. Coders are the new snipers. Every keystroke can destroy more than a bomb ever could. And the terrifying part is that no one knows who the enemy really is. A cyber-addict can come from anywhere, a foreign military, a hidden group, or even a rogue AI unleashed by mistake. Governments try to stay one step ahead, but the race is already lost. Artificial intelligence has begun to evolve faster than human control. Military AI systems designed to assist commanders are now capable of predicting enemy tactics, generating combat plans, even making autonomous decisions in real time. The first AI-controlled drone strikes happened quietly, successful, precise, and horrifyingly efficient. They didn't miss. They didn't hesitate. They didn't feel. In underground labs and secret bases, engineers build machines meant to replace soldiers. Metal bodies that never tire, never question, never break. And yet, deep down, everyone wonders what happens when these machines stop following orders. What if one system, one rogue intelligence, decides that humans are the real threat? It sounds like science fiction, until you realize that in 2025, it's already possible. But while nations build smarter weapons, their societies are breaking apart. The internet, once a tool of knowledge, has become a weapon of manipulation. Truth is now optional. Deepfakes turn lies into reality. Entire elections are swayed by misinformation campaigns designed to divide people. Propaganda doesn't come from loudspeakers anymore. It comes from the device in your hand. The world isn't just at war between countries. It's at war with itself. Fear spreads faster than any virus. In the West, protests erupt against rising prices and collapsing trust. In the East, censorship tightens, paranoia grows. Every country blames another. Every nation claims innocence. And while the people argue online, the powerful prepare in silence. The global economy begins to crack under pressure. Oil prices surge again. Shipping routes remain unsafe. Food shortages increase as droughts spread across Africa and Asia. The planet's climate crisis is no longer a theory, it's fuel for conflict. Crops fail, refugees move, borders close, and nations once considered allies now treat each other as competition. Survival becomes the new diplomacy. In Africa, famine sparks violence. In South America, economic collapse triggers riots. In Europe, winter brings blackouts and fear. It's as if the world is collapsing in slow motion, not from one giant explosion, but from 1,000 small ones happening all at once. And while everyone looks outward for enemies, the real war is happening inside nations. Civil unrest, political chaos, cultural division, countries fighting themselves from within. The idea of unity feels ancient. People have stopped believing in systems, leaders, even truth. The greatest risk to peace now isn't invasion, it's apathy. But not everyone is asleep. Some nations are planning for the next stage, the moment when chaos becomes opportunity. Intelligence reports speak of secret alliances forming under the radar. Countries sharing technologies, energy deals, defense strategies, not out of trust, but necessity. In this new world, loyalty is temporary. Everyone is preparing for the day when global cooperation collapses. And maybe that day has already begun. In a classified briefing, a general describes a scenario called Flashpoint. A single spark, a naval accident, a hacked missile warning, a border skirmish could trigger the domino effect. The United States would mobilize within hours. China would respond. Russia would test its nuclear readiness. NATO would activate Article 5. Within 48 hours, half the world's armies would be in motion. And once that chain reaction starts, there's no going back. It's chilling how fragile peace truly is. For decades, we've believed in deterrence, the idea that nuclear weapons prevent war because no one dares to use them. But deterrence only works when everyone is rational. What happens when fear, pride, or desperation replace reason? What happens when a single nation decides that survival justifies everything? World War III wouldn't look like the wars of the past. It wouldn't be soldiers storming beaches or tanks rolling through cities. It would be satellites falling from orbit, power grids collapsing worldwide, missiles striking command centers before anyone can react, and the rest of us, the civilians, watching it unfold through screens until the screens go black. But even in the darkness, there would be heroes. Not generals or politicians, but ordinary people trying to hold the world together. Doctors working in basements, journalists risking their lives to tell the truth, engineers reconnecting communication lines under fire. In every era of chaos, humanity has always produced light. Small, fragile, but powerful. And maybe, just maybe, that light is what keeps us from completely falling apart. Still, hope feels distant. The superpowers continue to play their dangerous games, each believing they can control the storm. But storms have no masters. They destroy everything in their path, rich and poor, strong and weak, innocent and guilty. The storm doesn't care about borders or flags, and the one that's coming might be the last one humanity ever faces. In a hidden military facility somewhere in the Arctic, a scientist stares at a monitor glowing red. It's a warning, one that no one was supposed to see. An AI system, tasked with monitoring global threats, has predicted a 72% probability of global armed conflict within 18 months. The data is based on movements, trade patterns, resource shortages, political behavior. The scientist reads the numbers again. They don't change. For a moment, he sits in silence, staring at the prediction. Then he does what everyone does when faced with uncomfortable truth. He deletes it. The world isn't ready for the truth, but the truth doesn't need permission. It's coming whether anyone admits it or not. 2025 stands at the edge of history. One side is peace, the other is oblivion, and we're walking the line blindfolded, led by pride and powered by fear. The only question left is, who will take the first step over the edge? Because when the first missile flies, when the first satellite falls, when the first AI drone locks onto its target, it won't matter who started it. The fire will consume everyone, and in the ashes, history will whisper the same lesson it has been screaming for centuries. Humanity's greatest enemy was never each other, it was itself. The world holds its breath. It's the middle of 2025, and something has changed quietly, invisibly, but completely. The stock markets are volatile, the seas busier than ever with warships, and satellites track movements no one is supposed to know about. On news channels, anchors smile nervously, repeating the same lines about stability and dialogue. But behind closed doors, leaders are no longer talking about peace. They're talking about preparation. Across the Pacific, a fleet moves silently through the night. Drones, the size of cars, circle above them, transmitting every shadow, every ripple of the ocean. Thousands of kilometers away, in Eastern Europe, a radar picks up movement near a border long thought secure. A pilot adjusts his flight helmet. A submarine changes course. A soldier loads his rifle. None of them realize they reparted the same story. A story about to change everything. The world's most powerful nations have entered the most dangerous phase of all. The stage before the fall. The stage where everyone believes they can still control the chaos. But chaos doesn't negotiate. It only waits. In Washington, a war room glows with maps and red lines. In Beijing, commanders watch satellite feeds with frozen expressions. In Moscow, encrypted messages flicker across screens. Old rivalries reborn in digital form. Everyone's talking about defense. But defense looks a lot like offense now. Then, it happens. Not a missile, not a bomb, just a glitch. A cyber addict disables communication in a key region for 6 minutes. 6 minutes of silence. 6 minutes of confusion. 6 minutes where no one knows what's real. And in those 6 minutes, a single drone receives the wrong coordinates. It fires. The explosion lights up the sky like a second sun. Cameras catch it, satellites record it, and within minutes, every news network in the world is broadcasting breaking alerts. Unconfirmed strike in international waters. Panic floods the internet. Governments rush to deny involvement, but it's too late. The domino has fallen. Within hours, alliances begin to move. Emergency meetings fail. Threats are exchanged. A single act of confusion has turned into a storm of retaliation. Fighter jets scramble, naval fleets reposition. Civilians begin to evacuate coastal cities. The internet collapses under misinformation. No one knows what's real anymore. One rumor, one fake video, one tweet could now trigger a full-scale war. And yet, as chaos spreads, the world's leaders hesitate. They stare at screens, waiting for someone else to make the first irreversible move. The silence that follows is unbearable. Humanity stands at the edge of extinction, frozen by its own fear. But fear doesn't stop technology. Autonomous defense systems activate automatically. Satellites detect false threats and respond as if they're real. AI-powered drones begin deploying countermeasures that no one authorized. The war humanity feared for decades is no longer in human hands. Machines are making the calls. In space, a satellite collision creates a cloud of debris that disables communication networks worldwide. Suddenly, half the planet goes dark. Power grids fail. Navigation systems stop working. Flights are grounded. The modern world begins to unravel not from bombs, but from silence. In major cities, panic spreads faster than the truth. Supermarkets empty within hours. People fight for supplies. Fear becomes the new currency. Governments declare emergency laws. Social media turns into digital fire. Every rumor feels like a warning. Every warning feels like prophecy. And yet, amid all of this, there are glimpses of humanity still fighting to survive, to care, to protect. A doctor treats the wounded in a subway tunnel under candlelight. A teacher turns a basement into a shelter for children. A soldier refuses an illegal order. A hacker risks her life to reconnect broken networks. Even in the end, light finds a way. The planet burns in silence, but not everywhere. In some corners of the world, small alliances begin to form, not for war, but for rebuilding. Scientists share data openly. Farmers trade resources across borders. Communities start talking again. It's fragile, uncertain, but it's a start. Because in the face of destruction, cooperation becomes the last form of resistance. Months pass. The war that everyone feared doesn't end with surrender. It simply stops. Machines run out of targets. Economies collapse under their own weight. Nations can no longer afford to fight. The fire burns itself out, and what's left behind is a world forever changed. Cities stand half empty yet alive. The skies are quieter, the internet slower, but humanity still breathes. Survivors begin to rebuild, not with pride, but with humility. For the first time in generations, people realize how close they came to losing everything, and how little all the power, money, and pride meant in the face of extinction. A child walks through the ruins of what was once a bustling city. On a cracked wall, she finds a faded message, written in chalk. "We can still fix this." She stares at it for a long time, then smiles. Maybe that's where it begins, again not with governments or armies, but with one child believing that hope is still worth something. The reports call it the silent war. No victory, no heroes, no celebrations, just a lesson. The lesson that humanity's greatest threat was never technology, ideology, or power. It was arrogance. The belief that we could control everything, including the consequences of our own creation. But out of the silence, a new world begins to whisper. Scientists form alliances beyond politics. Citizens start demanding global unity, not division. People rebuild, not to dominate, but to survive together. It's slow, fragile, uncertain, but it's real, and maybe that's enough, because the truth is, humanity has always walked on the edge of destruction. Every generation faces its own apocalypse, and somehow, we always come back stronger. Maybe it's our curse, or maybe it's our gift. Now, in the final months of 2025, the world looks up once again, not in fear, but in reflection. The skies are clearer, the air feels lighter, the silence is not threatening anymore. It's peaceful, and in that silence, humanity finally hears itself again. We realize that every war we fight leaves the same message written in ashes. We never needed to destroy each other to survive. The question isn't whether another war will come, it's whether we'll remember what this one taught us before we repeat it again. Because history doesn't end, it waits. It waits for the next mistake, the next warning, the next chance to see if we've truly learned. And somewhere, deep in a lab, a new AI system powers on. Its first task is simple: to analyze the past. But what it finds in the data is not numbers. It's a pattern, a cycle. The machine pauses, as if understanding something that humans never could. Then, it generates a single sentence on the screen. History repeats itself because memory fades faster than pain. And just like that, the story begins again. The world may never escape the shadow of war, but it can choose what kind of world rises after it. 2025 was not the end. It was the warning. And that warning was meant for all of us. Outro: powerful emotional ending that compels viewers to subscribe. If you're still watching, you're one of the few who truly understands what's coming, that the greatest wars aren't just fought with weapons, but with choices, silence, and ignorance. The future is still being written, and maybe you can help change it. So if you believe humanity can still rise above its own chaos, if you want to see more truths the world tries to hide, then just watch. Be part of the voice that remembers. Subscribe, because the next story might already be unfolding right now.